All right, my fifth grade friends, welcome back to part 2. Today's lesson is going to be all about finding the distance of a line segment, just like what we've been working on in our kind of different algebraic expressions here. We have another formula here that we're going to be using. This one looks a little bit more complex than the one we've been using for midpoint and for slope of a line, and it is a little bit more complex. But just like those other formulas that we've used, it's a lot of just plugging in the numbers. We just have some different things in this formula that we haven't had before. You see there's a couple of exponents. We have a big time kind of weird symbol here that means square root. But a lot of what we're going to be doing is just practicing inputting numbers into this formula and then letting the calculator do a lot of the work. But what we're trying to figure out is how long these line segments are. We're going to try to figure out, use this formula so we can figure out how long this line is. Okay, that's why we call it the distance, how far it is going. So let's get started. You can see here, it doesn't matter what point you have that you want to mark as point 1 and part 2, but the first step you're always going to do is make sure that you put the coordinate down. So you can see my first point is -2 as an x, up 1 as a y. So I'm going to write that coordinate right there. And I'm going to kind of label this as my coordinate number 1. Coordinate number 2, my x is over 4. My y is up 2. So it is 4, 2. This will be my second coordinate. All right. So we've got this big expression here. And what we're going to do is we're going to worry about what's on the inside first. We got to plug some lines in, worry about what's on the inside, and then work our way towards the outside. Okay. So we've got x2 minus x1. All right. Well, let's take a look at that. All right. x2 is 4 minus x of 1. X of 1 is -2. All right, so I'm going to write that inside of there. We know that that is going to eventually be squared, but I'm taking these letters, these x2, x1, and I'm filling it in with the numbers. All right, we know that whatever that is, we're going to add it on to y2 minus y1. So y2 is 2, and y1, so we're going to subtract it because that's what the formula tells us to, is 1. We know eventually that's going to be squared. And that whole thing, eventually, we're going to have to use this big square root button. All right, moving right along. Now let's actually do some of the math. So we have 4 minus a -2. Whenever you minus a negative, it's adding. So what we really have there is 6. So we have 6 squared plus 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So we have 1 squared. I took that parentheses and I kind of simplified them down. And then I know we're eventually going to take that square root. Like I said, I'm using it as a proof. I'm doing one step at a time. So what does this exponent mean? Well, it's not 6 to the second power. It's not 6 times 2. It's how many times we're going to multiply 6 together. So 6 squared is the same as taking 6 times 6. All right, so one common mistake we see kids use is that they're going to put 12 in that. Nope, it's not 12. We're not multiplying those two numbers together. That floating number, that floating exponent tells us how many of our base number we need to multiply together. So 6 times 6 equals 36. So I have 36. That turns into 36. I'm going to add 1 to the second power, which is the same as 1 times 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So now we have this new equation of square root of 36 plus 1. All right. Final step, I add it together. 36 plus 1. 36 plus 1 is 37. And so we have the square root of 37. So some teachers are going to allow you to just leave this as an answer. So the answer, the distance of this line, is the square root of 37. But you can also go to the calculator and figure out the actual distance. So I'm going to take the number. I'm going to take, all right, I have 37. And I have this little square root button here. Oop, and this one's a little bit different. Square root of 37. You can see that number kind of forms in there. I hit equal, and I get this big, long number. So you can see the distance of that line is 6.08. I'm just going to round it there. So we have 6.08. So you can see either of these answers would work. A lot of times they'll leave it in this form of the square root of 37, just because, as we noticed, they can be some pretty long decimal numbers. So that is our final answer. All right, let's look at one more problem. All right, I'm going to go a little bit faster with this one, but it might help you to see it. So we have x of 2 and x of 1. I'm going to call this point number 1. I'll call this point number 2 as we go here. This first point is -2, and it is up 4. Over here, we have over 4 and down -3. Now we start filling in those numbers, all right? X of 2 is 4. 4 minus x of 1 minus 2 square root plus y of 2, which is -3, minus y of 1, which is 4. You can see all it is just filling in those numbers, ladies and gentlemen. This big, long, complicated equation is just filling in numbers. So we know that that's going to eventually have a big square root. Now, I'm going to take 2 steps at once here, just to save myself a little bit of time. 4 minus a -2. For 4 minus a -2, I'm minusing a negative, which means I'm actually adding. So equals 6. 6 to the second power is the same as taking 6 times 6. So I'm going to say 36. I'm going to take that 2 steps there at the same time. Now this one says, all right, -3 minus 4. Well, -3 minus 4 is -7. -7 to the second power. If you don't know it, go over here and take, okay, I've got -7 times -7 gets us 49. A negative times a negative gets you a positive. Did you notice that? Negative times a negative gets a positive. So if you need to check with the calculator, make sure you do that. Now I'm going to add those 2 numbers together and take the square root. So 49 plus 36 gets me 85. So I have the square root of 85. I could leave it like that, or I could actually do the math. So I'm going to hit all clear. Square root 85 equals, there's our distance. I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth, which means it would be 9.22. 9.22. All right, so all you're doing is you're using this equation. It may be a little confusing for you right away, but you're just plugging in those numbers and following step by step, working inside to outside. Please, please, please use that calculator if you need to. You're getting to a portion of math now where mathematicians use their calculators all the time. We want to make sure that you know how to use the formula. We're not as interested in, do you know how to do everything in your head? All right, my friends, good luck. And we're going to be working on this for today and tomorrow's lesson.